What's up, guys and girls? It's Ghost Robo, and welcome to the epic, much-awaited PlayStation 4 versus Xbox One versus Nintendo Switch video. I used to do these all the time around the launch of the PS4 and Xbox One. Believe it or not, these bad boys have been out. They're entering their 4th year. How crazy is that they've been alive that long and a part of our gaming lives that long? But I did updated versions back then, and things have changed. Now we have a new console competitor. Now we have a whole bunch of iterations of each respective box, and I thought it was due time that we updated the PS4 versus Xbox One versus Nintendo Switch April 2017 edition. So this video, the purpose is to give you guys a recommendation if you are still waiting to jump into this generation, if you're looking for a second console, or if you just want to find out which one I think is the best when we compare the consoles themselves, the UI, the game lineups, their features, and of course their price. So we're going to get into all of that, but two quick notes. One, I don't care which console is the best. I purposely wore a black and white shirt so that there was no blue allegiance, no green allegiance, no red allegiance, and you know that I love all these consoles. I play all of them all the time. My life revolves around games, and I frankly don't care which one wins. Also, PC does not factor into this. I'm well aware that PC is in a lot of people's mind, the ultimate platform. It has the most selection, the most options, the best power, but we're not going to talk anything about that. So let's not even worry about games that are on console and PC. Let's not worry about if they play better or perform better on PC. Let's not worry about how these compare to anything to do with personal computers. It's all about consoles and the three major platform holders that you see in front of you. So let's start on the Sony side of things. Back when I initially did the videos in 2013 and 2014, there was one iteration of each box. And I feel like back then, they were a lot closer. Since then, things have changed, the lineups have evolved, and the consoles themselves have seen upgrades and iterations. So in the center, we have the white base PS4. This is the initial console that released, and some may argue, including myself, that it's the best looking. But the PS4 Slim is probably the most common that you're going to find. Looking at pricing, the PS4 Slim with the game is $250 on Amazon right now, which is a great deal. You can get an Uncharted bundle for $250 with this PS4 Slim. That's fantastic. Price-wise over here, still about $250. I've seen a Minecraft bundle, a Battlefield 1 bundle, and you're getting the Xbox One S. So for better or worse, these are the consoles that are the most prevalent in terms of sales, bundles, and the cheapest. Let's not forget the PS4 Pro. This was Sony's attempt to introduce 4K gaming and to offer a beefier, better version of their PS4 system. Not a new system, but an incremental upgrade. Now, Microsoft's incremental upgrade is a much larger increment, and it was just revealed this past week, the Scorpio. So we'll get to that when we talk about the future of these consoles, but right now, it has no place on this table because it doesn't exist. The S over here is, I think, maybe the best looking console on the table. I think it's a fantastic design. They really did a nice job of shrinking everything down from the oversized original Xbox One, which may be the ugliest console on the table. So they have moved from something big and bulky to something smaller and sleeker, and I like that. Now, for me, I still prefer the regular PS4. I think that the Slim is good, but to me it has a cheaper, not as high-end look. And the Pro is fine. I know some people don't like the sandwich look, but this is the sweet spot in terms of aesthetics. In terms of UI, I think the PS4 still wins out. I really love the cross-media bar. I think it's the snappiest, most effective way to scroll through your games. And in a way, the Switch borrows from that. It has a similar bar. I don't know if we can call it a cross-media bar, but a Nintendo game bar. There's no media right now. And there's only one iteration of the Switch, so we can't talk about variety. There's different Joy-Con colors. You see I've gone double blue. But this is the only iteration of the Switch, and it's going to run you $300 if you can find it. But I like the UI that they have going there. It's just a more simple and less fully featured UI than the PlayStation has. The Xbox One has seen the most change to its interface. Now, they have definitely improved things, they've sped things up, but I still feel like it is the busiest and clunkiest interface. And I still have extreme issues loading into messages, dealing with friends lists, and things like that. It's not to say the PlayStation 4 handles friends lists all that more amazing, and there's definitely some hiccups there, but I find myself the least appealed by the Xbox One interface, and I'm hoping they still continue to make adjustments. The promise of Scorpio leads me to believe that they will, especially with the Scorpio focusing on an improved experience not only for 4K TV owners, but also 1080p owners, and those faster load times that come with that power should speed up the interface and hopefully develop a more fluid and fun UI to navigate. Again, the Switch is the most basic, not a lot going there, so to me the UI of the Switch is functional, just not fantastic. Let's talk about controllers for a quick minute. The PlayStation 4 with the DualShock 4, it's the best Sony has ever controlled. One of my favorite controllers of all time, and while the touch bar never really panned out to be something that incredible, in general, this is a phenomenal vehicle for controlling your games. They don't have an elite version like the Xbox, but that's fine because this bad boy is really, really fun to use. The sticks are great, the triggers are great, and it is Sony's best effort from a control standpoint. That being said, don't fret, because Microsoft has a phenomenal controller as well, and some people will inevitably prefer the Xbox One model. I can't even decide, frankly. I like them both for different types of games. I like them both on different days, and I definitely like the fact that both have cool color schemes, although lately Xbox has been winning out if you're a fan of custom or limited controllers. They even have their own suite to make your own color scheme via their website. But a lot of people prefer the offset sticks. A lot of people prefer the triggers here. There is an elite version. Don't really want to talk about it. It's a great controller, but it's incredibly expensive, and your money is probably better spent elsewhere. But those two are pretty darn even. I don't think you can really ascend one system over the other based on controllers. I think they're both fantastic controllers, and really kind of they have found the sweet spot for controllers from PS2, PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One. Great controllers all around. Now, the newcomer is the Joy-Con and the Pro Controller. Pro Controller, phenomenal. This thing feels great. One of Nintendo's best ever, and I have really enjoyed my time with the Joy-Con. I know some people were worried about them being small, about them being kind of dumb with the button D-pad, and that's still a little bit of a disappointment. But if you have a Pro Controller, you got a great D-pad, you got a fantastic controller, and in general, the Joy-Con works super, super well. I have never once felt like my gaming experience and enjoyment was ruined by the Joy-Con. In fact, sometimes it's great to be able to split those controllers and play more casually, more relaxed. I really enjoy that, and Nintendo has developed a gem here with the Pro Controller. So across the board, you got great control methods. They are all really, really strong and all very comparable, and while they have some unique aspects, the Xbox One controller, the Switch Pro Controller, and the DualShock 4, I think in general, across the board, they're pretty even, with one exception. The Pro Controller does not come with the Switch. You need to purchase this thing for $70 separately, and it's a great controller. It has great gyro, great buttons, great feel, great form factor, but it is extra, and that's kind of a bummer. So when you purchase the Switch, the Pro Controller will not be there. You'll be using the Joy-Con, and they have perks of their own because they can be split for multiplayer, which is awesome. You can't really cut this guy or this guy in half. You definitely can take these, though, and give them to a buddy. And in general, like, I like the flexibility of the Joy-Con. I like playing on the grip, and I don't think it's a negative, but just know that if you want the most gamer-like controller for the Switch, you're going to need to fork over $70, which is definitely not a nice feeling after you just spent $300 on a system. That being said, while it's not as great as the DualShock or as great as the Xbox One controller, I think the Joy-Con are pretty remarkable. The HD rumble is kind of cool, and the fact that they're able to be used for either single player, on the grip, on the handheld, split, or for two people, really freaking cool, and helps elevate them even in spite of some of their actual like physical lackings in terms of the button D-pad, in terms of the size, in terms of the sticks. So these two are basically even. This one can be even and can be even greater because of the extra flexibility, but you do need to buy this separately. Where it starts to get interesting is the overall experience and the games. Now, the experience of all of these is great. I think gaming is at its best right now. 2017 is shaping up to be one of the best years for gaming in my existence, and I've existed through most of gaming's history. I think if you look back at some of the top years, the 07s and things like that, the 09s, those years are very, very similar to what we have going on here in 2017. Except I think 2017 has a chance to be even better because it seems like all platforms are firing on all cylinders, and Nintendo is stepping up with one of their best games of all time, arguably the best exclusive out there, and that's not to say anything about Mario Odyssey, which comes out later this year and could up the ante for that franchise as well. But if we're to start getting down the nitty-gritty, the power has been discussed ad nauseum. The costs are very similar, $250 in a game, $250 in a game, $300. There's some, if you want Gears of War or a Terabyte, you're getting up in the $280 range. If you want the Pro, it's more there. If you want the Scorpio, you're looking at dropping $500. But I'm just going to say that I think personally, given the boxes here, any of the iterations will do you just as well. If you want to future-proof yourself a little bit with the PS4 Pro, that's fine. Eventually, you'll have the option to future-proof yourself with the Scorpio. But to me, the difference and the discrepancy between PS4 Pro and the other iteration is not large enough to fork over that extra amount. Unless you're really committed to 4K gaming, unless you already have a 4K TV, I think you're fine just with a $250 plus a game, because that saves you money to go in and get what's really important, which is more software. So let's talk a little about the software. I think this is where things get super interesting. And we're going to start off going left to right. So the Xbox One has some interesting exclusives. It has Sunset Overdrive, which I think is one of my favorite exclusives of this generation. It obviously is very strong in the first-person and third-person shooter with the Halo franchise, the Gears of War franchise, and racing with all the Forza titles. From there, it feels like it's a little bit limited. We saw a flip this generation where a lot of the third-party partnerships went to the Sony side of things in terms of Destiny 2's agreements, Call of Duty's agreements, and those seem to be continuing. Destiny 2 is already committed to doing DLC first and the beta first on PlayStation 4. And Microsoft definitely could use some more partnerships this E3. But outside of the titles I mentioned, it feels like the exclusives have been drying up for Microsoft. We saw Halo Wars 2 earlier this year. We had ReCore late last year. And frankly, since Gears of War 4, I really have not played a whole lot of Xbox One. In fact, in the last 3.5 years, which is the totality of these consoles' existence, currently is the era when I have played the least Xbox One. I find myself constantly playing multi-platforms on PlayStation 4 because of the smoother UI and because of just my personal preference of controller. And then the Switch has obviously stolen a lot of time with Breath of the Wild and some indie titles as well. But there still are really good games on Xbox One. And of course, the multi-platform stuff is fantastic. Indies are interesting because while Sony is known for having more of an indie focus, Microsoft has theirs as well. And a lot of the big ones like Inside and The Witness have crossed over. So the timed exclusivity no longer matters. Those are probably the top two indies for me last year and for a lot of people. Inside, a phenomenal game, but now it's available on PlayStation 4. The Witness, a phenomenal game, but now it's available on Xbox One. So I think when you look at the lineup for Xbox One, you're looking at Halo, you're looking at Gears, you're looking at Forza, and they really have dug deep into those franchises. For the rest of the year, of what we know, Microsoft Xbox One have Sea of Thieves, a multiplayer pirate kind of family-friendly adventure. They have Crackdown 3, which is the big title that we assume will be showcasing Scorpio and the power that that console can provide, especially for destructibility, online multiplayer, all that sort of stuff. And they have State of Decay 2, which has been revealed to have 3 maps the size of the first game, so it's triple the size and scope. Hopefully it also improves the gameplay and the visuals. And then they have a Forza title. So that's kind of what you got looking ahead for Xbox One game-wise. There's also going to be a Voodoo Vince remaster and a Phantom Dust remaster. Not sure how excited people are about those, but hopefully they have an ace up their sleeve. It seems like they need one more large title to really showcase the power of Scorpio and to put a stamp on the fact that Xbox has really good exclusives. Multi-platforms still end up being the major sellers in the form of Destiny 2, available on both, Battlefront 2, available on both, Call of Duty World War 2, available on both, and whatever else we get this year, hopefully Assassin's Creed Empire, available on both, and so on and so forth. Now, if we move to the Sony side of things, I think that while Xbox has some good exclusives that you can point to, they just cannot keep up in 2017 with the versatility and the variety of the PlayStation 4 lineup. So you're talking about things like Bloodborne, you're talking about things like Horizon Zero Dawn, you're talking about things like The Last of Us Remastered, Uncharted 4, right? They have a really strong slew of exclusives, and they keep pumping them out. You know, we've got another Uncharted 4 game this year, which started off as a small DLC and seems to have ballooned out to nearly a full game. You have Gran Turismo, you have the recently announced Wipeout Collection, you have the Crash Insanity Collection. You've got quite a bit of stuff, and Horizon Zero Dawn is arguably the best new IP this generation. Bloodborne is a phenomenal title, and Persona 5 is another 94 on Metacritic. I don't think you can really compare, at least this year, what Sony has done with what Microsoft has done, because between Neo, Persona 5, and Horizon Zero Dawn, they are absolutely crushing it. And Microsoft does not really have an answer. I think what they really need is a new IP that can compete with the likes of Horizon Zero Dawn, because that seemed to really energize the PlayStation 4 base and gaming as a whole. So, lineup-wise, Sony is crushing it. And they have a whole lot more in the bag as well, with Detroit Become Human, Days Gone, God of War, and who knows what other surprises. So their game lineup, I think, is the strongest of all. They've got the best currently available lineup. They have what seems to be the best future lineup of what we know. And the variety there and the quality there is really strong. Even stuff like Yakuza 0 was very well regarded earlier this year. And even though they've had some duds like The Order and things of that sort, they also have the Ratchet and Clanks, the infamous Second Sons, and a lot of early titles that were strong as well. If we go back in the lineup, you know, the Dead Risings and the Rises and things of that nature don't hold up as well. And timed exclusives like Tomb Raider are now on PlayStation 4. And again, majority of the games, For Honor, Mass Effect, things of that nature, are cross. But game-wise, PlayStation 4 is currently holding serve. They are in control, they are in charge, and I don't see them letting up anytime soon. Again, the lineup that they have in the future, without even considering what's announced newly at E3, is pretty darn impressive, and Microsoft needs to step their game up if they want to compete. Now, for a lot of people, exclusives don't matter a whole lot, and they're more content with playing multi-platform titles and occasionally dipping their toes in the exclusive waters, but it cannot be ignored that Sony has the stronger line of exclusives by quite a large margin at the current point. I feel like their franchises have aged better, although Gears of War 4 was a phenomenal game, and I loved that. There's just more unique stuff on PS4. The Last Guardian, Horizon Zero Dawn, Yakuza, Persona, more variety Neo, and more unique stuff, Bloodborne, than the Xbox ensemble of games seems to really provide. And I'm hoping that Crackdown 3 can be a return to form for that franchise. I'm hoping that Sea of Thieves can be an excellent, sort of any age title. I'm hoping that State of Decay 2 is really fun. But I feel like they're missing that big oomph, and I don't know that Halo can keep that going. Uncharted 4 was the rare case where the fourth game was the best of all and fantastic and re-energized that base and even spawned a new game featuring 2 female leads, and that's fantastic. But I don't feel like some of Microsoft's franchises are seeing the same level of new innovation and new excitement. Like I said, Gears of War 4 was really fun though. Let's talk a little about the Switch. It's hard to really evaluate the lineup because it's so new, but The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild may be their best game ever and is the best game of the year thus far. So that is a huge win. For a young console releasing in March of this current year, for only being out a month, it already has one of the best games potentially of all time. And it's ironic that 2017 has so many games that could be added to people's all-time list. Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Depending on what kinds of genres you enjoy, you may be modifying your top 5 list. And that's really cool. Snipper Clips is a fun downloadable. Graceful Explosion Machine is a nice timed indie. And they have some other stuff as well, and they're building their lineup. We're moving towards Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, eventually ARMS, Splatoon 2, by the end of the year, Super Mario Odyssey, and Xenoblade 2, and hopefully some surprises in there, as well as more third-party support and a whole lot of indies. Nintendo Switch is quickly becoming the platform for indies. It's portable, you can bring it with you. And let me just speak on that for a second. That adds a lot to this conversation. The fact that you can take your Switch games with you anywhere is a huge get. Tied to a TV, locked in an entertainment center, You can bring it in a suitcase, but it is not giving you the hybrid potential that the Switch provides. And I found myself just drooling for any and all Switch titles because it's so fun to bring them anywhere. And I think anything that's multi-platform I would personally prefer on Switch, even if I sacrifice the power, just because it will fit into my lifestyle and allow me to play more often wherever I am, whenever I want. And that's a huge get. So while this is the weakest console power-wise, while it has by far the smallest lineup, it does have a very bright future. It's selling very well, and I love the different control mechanisms and schemes. I love the different play mechanisms and schemes, and I find this to be just Nintendo's strongest effort in such a long time. Personally, for me, strongest in ages. I think this is my favorite Nintendo console. Provided the lineup pulls through, my favorite Nintendo console since the Super Nintendo. And that's going way, way back. But I just love this hybrid nature. I'm enamored with the fact that I can take games everywhere. And I love that they started off with Breath of the Wild being such a mega hit. And we have Mario Odyssey looking to really mix up that formula as well. And then, of course, Splatoon, ARMS, and hopefully a few surprises in there. I can expect more Wii U ports, but I'd love to see another new IP or a continuation of another franchise such as Donkey Kong or Metroid. So it has a very small lineup. It's not going to get most of the third-party stuff. So if you're wanting to be someone that plays, all of the Call of Duties and the Battlefields and the Battlefronts and the Red Dead Redemptions and all that stuff, Switch probably is not for you. Now, there's no guarantee some of those don't come, but just being honest, right now it looks like a lot of them won't. And I'm still hopeful. Eventually, maybe they can build partnerships and bring a lot of those games with lowered resolution, but the increased ability to play anywhere, and that will be awesome. But for right now, you have to go in knowing that this is a Nintendo and indie-focused platform, which will have some third-party support, but nowhere near the amount that these two big boxes have. So I think it's such an interesting conversation. Which wins out? Well, when we're talking about it, the Switch offers the most unique experience. It offers the most flexibility. It offers the best opportunity to fit into your lifestyle, no matter who you are, what you do, where you live, how you play. The PS4 is definitely the gamer's box right now. It has the strongest lineup. It has, I feel, the strongest UI. It has the technically most powerful system with the PS4 Pro, although Scorpio is looming in the near future. And I'm very curious to see how that changes things. How does Microsoft taking the lead in terms of hardware power change this conversation? Does it change anything? What games will they have that really showcase and take advantage of that Scorpio 6 teraflop power? Will there be a renewed focus on partnerships with third parties? Will third parties embrace the Scorpio and want to develop games that take advantage of all that insane amount of tech? Because if not, it's going to be a very expensive and overpriced PS4 Pro, which I can't even wholeheartedly recommend right now. It is definitely stronger than PS4 Pro, and I'm hopeful that they'll have original games to take advantage of it. I think the best way to sell Scorpio and the best way to get back on track for Microsoft is with a strong promise and a strong future of exclusives. To me, the most exciting exclusive that Microsoft had, unfortunately, ended up canceled. Scalebound looked big and bold and pretty awesome. Sadly, that's no more, so they need something to fill that gap, and they need something to fill that slot of a new IP that can excite not only the Xbox fan base, but the gaming fan base as well. And I'm waiting. I'm hopeful at E3 with the reveal of Scorpio will come also a reveal of something stellar on the game front. They really need it, and while you can play everything multi-platform, in a direct comparison, it's hard to recommend the Xbox One over the PS4 at this time. I feel like earlier in their life cycle, it was more of a close conundrum. You had a lot of things going in the favor of Microsoft, a lot of things going in the favor of Sony, and it was kind of, which franchises do you prefer, and which controller do you prefer, and which ecosystem are you more invested in, and where do you trust the partnerships to fall? We've seen a lot of that pan out over the last 3.5 years, and Sony is clearly ahead. And I'm hopeful that Microsoft can catch up, but right now, between these two, I think the PlayStation 4 is where I would place my recommendation because of the fact that it is the most powerful, it has the nicest interface, and it has the best lineup. Currently, to me, PlayStation 4 is the best place to play games. The kicker, though, and sort of the wild card here is the Nintendo Switch, because this is a very unique box that is still providing a console experience, is still going to have a wonderful lineup of exclusives, is really promoting and pumping up the indie community, and may have some third parties, but most importantly, introduces a whole new way of play. And I think maybe the Switch is not the best primary console, but I think it is the best secondary. To me, in this current state, in 2017, April, I think your best bet would be to have one of these and one of these, if you're able. Now, some people may prefer the Switch over both. They may say, hey, I want to play Breath of the Wild, I want to play Mario Odyssey, I really like indies, and I love the fact that I can take this anywhere. And I think that's totally valid. For the first time in a long time, a Nintendo console is a totally acceptable and viable single console to own. For a lot of people, they're still going to want to experience the Assassin's Creeds and the Call of Duties and the Tomb Raiders, the Batmans, all that sort of stuff. And who knows, maybe some of them do arrive on Nintendo's new toy. But for now, the Switch is an interesting alternative that is headed in a really great direction. And I think once they build the lineup, this video come fall 2017, if we do it again, it may lean heavier into the Switch. Also remember that the Switch is the most expensive of these three, which for an underpowered console and a small lineup may not be too appealing to some. And I don't believe the price will be lower this year. I could see them doing a bundle around the holidays that keeps it $300 but gives you a game, but I don't foresee them dropping to $250 anytime soon. PlayStation 4, Xbox One, I don't know about a price drop. $250 with a game is pretty darn low. You're looking at $200, $220 for these boxes, which I think is an insane value, and obviously the best they've been since their inception. And I can wholeheartedly recommend either at that price point. In their own vacuum, the Xbox One is a great console with a whole lot of great games. In its own vacuum, the PlayStation 4 is a great console with a lot of great games. When you match them up head-to-head, I think the PS4 wins out. And I think for some people, the Switch will win out. Ultimately, if you're a Nintendo fan, if you enjoy those franchises, if you like the portability, if you like the multiplayer focus. Now, multiplayer focus is interesting. It's something else I want to briefly touch on because these guys are very familiar and pretty darn good with their online infrastructure and their online interactions. Nintendo is kind of the newcomer to that scene, and they don't have a full online system implemented yet. They're promising to introduce that later this year with a paid version this fall. It sounds like it's going to integrate with a phone app, which is a little bit awkward, but maybe it'll work. For now, though, it's a great local play system. It's a great bring it with you and share with your friends system. You can take this thing, and once April 28th rolls around and we have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, you'll be able to snap off a Joy-Con, give it to your buddy, and play wherever you are, which is so cool. And it really ups the value of the Switch, because now you're not tied to a living room, you're not tied to your home, you can enjoy gaming anywhere. And a console level experience. This is not the iteration of the DS line, this is not an iteration of the Vita, this is a far stronger system that delivers console level graphics and console quality gameplay in the palm of your hand, or up on the TV, or in the palm of you and your buddy's hands, or in the palm of 8 of your friends' hands, which is really unique. And again, I don't want to undersell the Switch, because I feel it does provide something of extreme value and of something of extreme innovation in today's day and age. We see so many repetitive themes and repetitive mechanics being used across gaming today, and I love that the Switch mixes it up. If not in the games themselves, at least in the experience, which these two are very close to each other. They're very comparable in their experience. The Switch is something very different. And just to touch on a couple other little differences, obviously the Xbox is better integrated with media, better integrated with television, and you can do a lot there. They also have the Play Anywhere system, where games can be played on Windows 10 and Xbox One. I've never really taken advantage of that, but I know some people really enjoy the ability to continue Gears 4 on Xbox One or on PC. And PlayStation has PSVR. Now you'll notice I didn't really touch on PSVR a whole lot, because I don't really think it's a major factor. I still think it's an outlier. I still think it isn't really worth a price. I still think there needs to be more titles, and I'm excited to try out things like Farpoint and whatever else they bring later this year. The Vive has had a nice, and Oculus and Vive have had sort of a nice resurgence lately, especially in Oculus with titles like Robo Recall, and I still think those are really fun gaming diversions. I don't think they're really gaming mainstays yet, and maybe they never will be, maybe they will, who knows. But this can play PSVR. The assumption is that the Xbox Scorpio will have some sort of VR compatibility, so it's another bonus and benefit to the PS4 sort of ecosystem. I think it'll be added to the Xbox ecosystem. I don't think it really is a game changer for either, though. And maybe some people feel really strongly about VR, and so you're locked into PS4 because you know you can experience that without needing a really powerful PC. But for me, and for what these consoles provide, and for the games that are greatest, you definitely don't need VR. So it's an addition, it's an extra feature, it's an extra check on the back of the box, but I don't think it is what determines the difference here. The difference is in the games, and the difference is in the current state of the two platform holders. Sony seems to be on a trajectory that does not stop, and Microsoft seems to have more ebbs and flows, and hopefully they can flow at E3 2017. That would be fantastic. That's what we'd love to see. And then Switch comes in as sort of the oddball third child here, who is doing something totally different and crazy. So I think, in conclusion, if we're going to make a recommendation, if we're going to order these, if we're going to pick anything, the state of gaming is phenomenal. No matter what console you have, please don't feel bad. You're in great shape, because most of the games are going to be multi-platform, and you have excellent power and excellent controller here. You have excellent power, excellent controller here. You have excellent controller and excellent portability here. You're in good shape no matter where you decide to fork over your cash. And I think that you will be rewarded no matter which. And a lot of it comes down to personal preference. Are you a big Halo guy? Are you a big Gears guy? Do you love Uncharted? Are you all about Nintendo and Zelda? That really factors in heavily, and a lot of this is personal preference. But if I had to decide and give you a final verdict, I would say the PlayStation 4 is the best console currently available. I think the games, the price, the power, the interface, all of that earns itself the victory. And I think the Xbox is farther behind than it has been. And it's worrisome, but with the introduction of Scorpio and that extreme power, they have an opportunity to flip the script a bit. As long as they have games to back it up, that incredible console, that hardware miracle, should do some good stuff for Microsoft. And I'm excited to see at E3 their plan and their program for how they are going to convince us to spend $500 on a Scorpio this fall. Because that's double the price of the current consoles, which is crazy. again, and that's why I think it's fine to get the Slim or the S. I don't think you need the Pro right now. I think you're fine with those, and use the money for extra games. Use the extra couple $100 on more games, and get yourself more immersed in some new franchises and some fun online multiplayer, and play around with the PS Plus games and the games for gold and some of the older titles that have dropped to $19.99. This is a phenomenal time to be a gamer. And you got free Civ over here, you got free stuff over here. Notice we didn't even need to talk about that because Microsoft did step their game up. I think the Switch is on its way to challenging these guys. And I know it's not going to power, and I know it's not going to in sheer amount of titles, but I really think the hybrid nature is something special. And once the lineup rounds itself out, once we have I can recommend wholeheartedly 5-6 retail titles, then I think this is going to step up. Right now it's kind of like a TBD in terms of score, but my ideal situation would be to have a Switch and a PS4. I think that is the strongest combo possible. I think a Switch on its own is very awesome, provided you like what they have and you're willing to wait a little bit. I don't think in any way the Switch is a bad purchase. I freaking love my Switch. I play it all the time, and I'm chomping at the bit for any new title. But some more time in the oven for it to develop a lineup is maybe what it needs to really ascend to a position where I can say, hey, you're going to have just as much of a great time with this as you are this, because that portability to me elevates it above the rest, at least in method of play. Now it just needs things to play. So that's kind of where I stand. Let me know where you stand in the comments below, what you think of this video, if you agree, if it changed your mind, if you're planning on picking one of these up. If you don't have any console, where are you going? If you already have one, do you want another? Are you waiting for Scorpio? I want to know your thoughts. I want to know your opinion. And hopefully this was informative and helpful. Like I said, a lot of games on both. And right now, I think it's kind of like Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, all doing different things. It's just trajectory. And right now, these guys are on the real upswing, and Microsoft's kind of bouncing around at the baseline, and hopefully the Scorpio is that slope they need. And I totally forgot to mention about the Spider-Man game, which looks freaking incredible. So I cannot wait for that one as well. And just the exclusives on Sony are really exciting. And that's that. So until next time, everyone, thanks so much for watching. Fantastic day. Drink some hot chocolate. I love you. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really like doing stuff like this, so we're going to try and introduce more analysis and more opinions in the future. So until then, have a fantastic day. Thanks again. Drink so much chocolate. We'll see you all later.